Hello, friends. It's me. It's Salty. Welcome to my stream. Let's turn that down a bit in my earphones. There we go. Oh my god, it's so nice having a volume knob on my keyboard. Yes, hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, friends. Hello, viewers. Hello, foot watchers. It's me. Third time this week. What's going on? I think I'm just happy reading this book. We are continuing to read Cloud of Sparrows. Don't mind the bookmark. It's just a magnet. Yes. And, I feel like this is a book that not a lot of people know about. Mind you, it is 20 odd years old. Hello, Alyssa. How you doing? And yeah, it's... I don't know why I like it. I just do. Not just because it has samurai in it. But, I don't know. It's kind of like a exploration of culture sort of book. And also exploration of a changing culture. Not saying that the culture was good or anything. Saying that it is exploring a changing culture. Doing okay, hope I'm well. Thank you. I think I'm well. Yeah. I'm getting a flu shot tomorrow, so we'll see how we go after that. It's although I usually do okay with the flu shot, it's the COVID shot that usually knocks me around a bit. And I have to make a appointment for that next week. But yes, the Rona shot makes your arms swell. I don't have that reaction. That's a reaction. No, I just have flu symptoms for like 3 to 5 days. Basically, I just last time I had a freaking COVID shot, I had trouble walking to the toilet. One morning, that's how bad it was. I had to like grab onto everything. But different COVID shot next week. I haven't made the appointment yet, but it's yet another variant shot. So see how that goes. Now, I don't think I have any other news. Not really. Went shopping today. Did a big shop. You have to go to the dentist? I should go to the dentist. I hope it's just a checkup. Hope you're not. Well, I mean, hope everything gets sorted. I have to make an appointment to get my wisdom teeth removed. Nothing really to report. Nothing really to report. So yeah, Cloud of Sparrows. Yesterday, Lord Genji welcomed his American guests. I did a few bad American accents. And and Lord Genji took a risk when he went out on his 20-minute journey, which took an hour because he had to wait for everyone to get assembled. He took a risk by not wearing a jacket with his clan symbol on it. So his aide pointed out that somebody could use that as an excuse to assassinate him. And they tried. But then they missed. So they had to, it didn't work, and then they had to, the assassin decided to take a shot at the missionaries instead, his guests, and he aimed for the palanquin to kill Emily, but it missed because Emily was not used to sitting in a palanquin, and she was all around. And the bullet went straight through and hit Zephaniah. And that was the end of that. Oh, and apparently Genji's spy master sucks. He was outfoxed by his geisha lover, Lady Heiko. He was just supposed to follow her and see if she did anything suspicious. So he's just like sneaking around, and she's just like, "Oh my god, this idiot." And he's like, "Geisha don't move like that. Ninja move like that." And it's like, my guy, maybe you just suck. She outfoxed me. She must be a ninja. Anyway, so we're up to chapter 3. Chapter 3. It is called Quiet Crane. Quiet Crane. And it starts like all chapters do with a poem, or not a poem, just like an excerpt from Suzume no Kumo, which I'm sure they will tell us what that is at some point. Mists shroud the forest ahead and the sea behind. At the same time, the faraway peak of Mount Tosa is as vivid as the spring sky. Ahead, snipers hide among the trees and shadows. Behind, submerged assassins close in, hanging on driftwood. What use is distant clarity? Cromwell woke from dream to dream. Now Emily's face hovered above, her golden curls drifting towards him. She seemed weightless, and so did he. Was it a dream of shipwreck then? They were under water. The Star of Bethlehem had gone down, and they were both drowned. He tried to look for Flotsam, but his vision would not leave Emily. The star is unharmed, Emily said. It lies at anchor in Edo Bay. So in this dream she perceives his thoughts. The world outside of dreams would be a better place if all minds were as open as books. Then there would be no need of pretense or of shame. Sin, repentance, and salvation could occur at once, in the same moment. Rest, Zephaniah, Emily said. There is no need to think of anything at all. Yes, she was right. He tried to touch her hair, but he had no arm to raise. Cromwell felt himself grow lighter. How was that possible if he was already weightless? Thoughts did not adhere. He closed his eyes and he left this dream for another. ... Emily paled. Is he dead? He's drifting in and out of delirium, Stark said. They had brought Cromwell into the guest wing of the palace. He lay on a bed of thick cushions spread on the floor. A middle-aged Japanese man, whom they presumed to be a doctor, examined Cromwell, applied a strong-smelling salve to the wound, and bandaged it. Before he left, the doctor called a trio of young women over to the bedside. Showing them the salve and the bandage, The doctor gave brief instructions, then bowed to Emily and Stark, and departed. The young women retreated to the edge of the room and waited there on folded knees, still and quiet. Emily sat at Cromwell's right side on a cushion 3 feet square. Stark sat on a similar cushion to the left. Neither of them was comfortable on the floor. They lacked the arts of seated posture in which their Japanese hosts were clearly well practiced. Stark could make his legs bend, but he couldn't keep them there for long. He shifted from one position to another every few moments. For Emily, her long skirt and voluminous petticoats made it that much more difficult to arrange her limbs in an acceptable posture. Finally, she settled herself on one hip and extended her legs out to the side, careful to keep them covered with her skirt. It was how she used to sit at picnics in her childhood. Not entirely appropriate here, but the only way she could manage. "We bring nothing with us but the word of Christ," Emily said. She wiped the sweat from Cromwell's face with a cool, wet towel. "Why would anyone wish us harm?" "I don't know, Sister Emily." Stark had seen the glint of metal on the roof an instant before the assassin fired. He dove for the ground before the sound of the gun reached his ears. If he had not done so, the bullet would have struck him instead of Cromwell. Stark's alertness was the preacher's misfortune. That and enough bad luck of his own. After missing Stark, the bullet went in one side of the palanquin and out of the other. It should have struck Emily, but somehow it had not. Instead, upon exiting, it bore a hole straight into Cromwell's belly. Gut shot. Men sometimes took weeks to die when they were gut shot. "He looks so peaceful," Emily said. "His brow is unfurrowed, and he smiles as he sleeps." "Yes, Sister Emily, he looks very peaceful." The more Stark thought about it, the more likely it seemed that he had been the assassin's target. Money would have changed hands. A hireling would have gone on the roof to kill a man he had never seen. Mutually incomprehensible languages posed no barrier. Stark had no doubt money bought death in Japan as easily as it did in America. He stretched his legs for a few moments to keep them from cramping. Every time he moved, the 4 samurai on guard became more alert. They knelt in the hallway outside the room. It was not clear if they were there to protect the missionaries, or to imprison them. Ever since the shooting, they had been watching him closely. Stark didn't know why. ... New scene. "The bandages will have to be changed frequently," Dr. Ozawa said. "I have given him medicine that will reduce the bleeding, but it cannot be stopped altogether. Major arteries were severed. The bullet itself is lodged against the base of his spine. It cannot be removed." "How long?" Genji asked. The doctor shook his head. "Hours if he is fortunate, days if he is not." He bowed and made his exit. "How inauspicious," Genji said. "The American consul will have to be informed." Harris, a most unpleasant individual. Psyche said, "Lord, That bullet was meant for you. I doubt that. My enemies would not send such a poor marksman. How could he aim at me and hit a palanquin 10 feet away? A maid entered with a fresh pot of tea. I just brushed my teeth, so I can't get any tea. I will have to wait. A maid entered with a fresh pot of tea. Psyche impatiently waved her off, but Genji accepted another cup. The hot brew took the edge off the winter chill. I have examined the palanquin, Psyche said. Had you been in it, as everyone would expect, you would have been killed instantly. Only her barbaric posture saved the outsider woman's life. Yes, I know. I saw that for myself. Genji smiled at the maid. She coloured, embarrassed to receive his attention, and bowed deeply to the floor. She was charming, Genji thought, and pretty enough, though a little old to be unmarried. 22 or 3, he guessed. What was her name? Hanako. He considered the men of his bodyguard. Which of them was in need of a wife, and was of the proper age to appreciate this maid? I was not in the palanquin, however. I was in plain sight outside of it. Precisely my point, Psyche said. An assassin who does not know you would not think to find you on foot. What great lord walks while a female outsider rides? Also, you were not wearing the crest of your house. That too is unheard of. So he expected you to be where you should have been and put his bullet there. Tortured reasoning, Genji said. Tortured reasoning. Is that like moon logic? Or a bit less than moon logic? Hide and Shimada arrived at the door, breathing hard. They were the bodyguards Psyche had sent after the assassin. Forgive us, Lord, Hide said. There was no sign of him anywhere. Shimada said, No one saw anything. It was as if he disappeared into thin air. Ninja, Psyche said. Accursed cowards. They should all be put to the sword, down to the last woman and child. The building belongs to a grocer named Fujita, Hide said. A simple man. No involvement with unsavory characters. No connections to any clan, no debts, no daughters in bondage in the floating world. He's unlikely to be involved. Of course he is terrified of your retribution. Without being asked, he insisted on supplying all the provisions for our New Year's festivities. Genji laughed. Then he would be bankrupt, and he would be forced to sell all his daughters into the floating world. That would not bring him much credit, Lord, Hide said with a smile. I have seen the daughters. Psyche slapped the floor. Hide! Remember your place. Yes, sir. The chastised samurai pressed his head to the floor. We need not be so harsh, Genji said. This has been a trying morning. Hide, how old are you? Lord? Hide was taken aback by the unexpected question. 29, Lord. How is it you are unmarried at such an advanced age? Lord, Speak up, Psyche said, and stop wasting our Lord's time. This was all a waste of time as far as he was concerned. What frivolity was Genji engaging in now? With his life in danger, and the existence of the clan itself threatened, he was playing some silly game. "The opportunity has never presented itself, Lord," Hide said. Psyche said, "The truth is, Hide has an excessive fondness for women, wine, and gambling. His debts are such that no one of good family would even consider the burden of marriage with him." Psyche gave the information to hurry things along. Then perhaps they could return to the more pressing matters. The extremely suspicious outsider Stark, for example. "What is your debt?" Genji asked. Hide hesitated. 60 ryo, Lord." That was a massive sum for one of his station. An annual stipend was 10 ryo. Okay, so he's in debt 6 years' pay. Damn, that's some gambling. "Undisciplined idiot," Psyche said. "Yes, sir." Hide pressed his head to the floor once more, genuinely mortified. "Your debts will be discharged," Genji said. "See to it that you do not accumulate new ones. In fact, now that you are solvent, I advise you to immediately find a wife. Someone with household experience, so she may guide you in remaining solvent and show you the ways of domestic bliss." "Lord!" Hide remained down in the deepest possible bow. Lord Genji's generosity astounded him. "In fact, I myself will look into it for you," Genji said. "Will you trust me in this matter?" "Yes, Lord, thank you." "Hanako," Genji said, "show these men to another room where they may recover from their recent exertions. Remain there to serve them." "Yes," Hanako said. Bowing gracefully, she led Hide and Shimada from the room. When they were gone, Psyche made a deep, formal bow of respect to Genji. At last he understood what had taken place. In the midst of a crisis that could take his life, Lord Genji had not ceased to think of those in his care. The housemaid, Hanako, was an orphan. Despite her good manners and womanly charm, she was highly unlikely to find a worthy match on her own. She had no family connections to offer, no dowry. Hide, an excellent samurai in most respects, needed the weight of responsibility in order to fully mature. Left to himself, he would continue to squander his time and money on worthless diversions. In the end, he would be a useless sot, like so many of the samurai of the other degenerate clans, and not a few of their own. All this Lord Genji had cured with a single stroke. Tears came to the gruff warrior's eyes. "What's this, Psyche? Have I died and become a deity?" "Lord," Psyche said, too deeply moved to speak further, unable even to bring his head from the floor. Once again he had misjudged the depth of his lord's character. Genji reached for his teacup. The other maid, Michiko, bowed and refilled it. She was already married, so Genji smiled at her, but gave her no further thought. He drank his tea and waited patiently for Psyche to recover. Samurai were strange creatures. They were expected to endure the most atrocious physical tortures without a single complaint. Yet they felt free to weep when they witnessed nothing more nothing more serious than the beginnings of a marriage arrangement. After a time, Psyche raised his head and roughly brushed away his tears with a single sweep of his kimono's sleeve. I hope that wasn't an expensive kimono. Lord, you must consider the possibility that the missionaries are somehow involved in the plot against you. If there is a plot, the one called Stark anticipated the firing of the assassin's gun. I saw him diving for cover before I called out. That means he knew the man was there. Or it means he is highly observant. Genji shook his head. It is good to be on guard against treachery, but there is such a thing as seeing too much treachery everywhere. We must not let our imaginings distract us from real danger. Stark has only just arrived from America. There are assassins enough in Japan. Who would go through the complication of bringing one from outside? Perhaps someone who wishes to obscure any hint of his identity with an additional veil of confusion, Psyche said. Someone who you would not otherwise suspect. Genji sighed. Very well, you may look into the matter further, but please do not intrude too much on Stark. He is our guest. Psyche bowed. Yes, Lord. Genji said, Let us see how they fare. On their way down the hall, Psyche thought to ask about the grocer whose building the assassin had used. What shall we do about Fujita's offer? Convey our thanks and say we will permit him to supply the New Year's sake. Yes, Lord, Psyche said. That will be costly enough to relieve the grocer's fear, but not so costly as to be destructive. A wise decision. Psyche followed his lord with ever-increasing confidence. New scene. We're going back to Kawakami now, who is this, if you recall, Kawakami is the head of the shogun's secret police. And also the guy that actually sent the assassin. God. The Dutch celestial telescope took Kawakami's eye onto the rooftops above Genji's procession. Although his angle of view prevented him from seeing that particular street, he knew where the entourage was by the behavior of people at the one intersection not obstructed by buildings. When they threw themselves to the ground, the Lord was approaching. When they rose and resumed their activities, he had passed. Kawakami was greatly amused to see Monzaemon, the rich merchant banker, hastily stumble from his famous white horse and grovel in the dirt like any other peasant, despite his sartorial finery. Many of the great lords were in Monzaemon's debt. The shogun himself owed the insufferable little man vast sums. Yet there he was, face pressed against the ground at the passage of his betters. Money was one thing, the privilege of wearing two swords and the right to use them freely, that was No matter how much and how rapidly the world changed, Kawakami was certain of one thing. The power to buy would never match the power to kill. Kawakami thought he heard the sound of a single distant gunshot. As he watched through the telescope, Monzaemon jerked his head up from the ground, a look of fear on the fat peasant's face. The white horse beside him reared in panic. Only the quick action of one of his servants prevented him from being trampled to death. Something had happened. He would have to wait to find out what. He stepped away from the telescope. "I will be in the garden cottage," he said to his assistant Mukai. "Do not disturb me unless the matter is urgent." Kawakami went to the cottage alone. It was not much more than a simple shed in one of the smaller gardens of the vast castle, yet it provided him with the greatest pleasure of his life: solitude. It was a rarity in a place like Edo, filled with nearly 2 million people, and for a man like Kawakami, a great lord himself, usually surrounded by a small crowd of attendants of various ranks and kinds. Indeed, a key motivation for becoming the shogun's chief spy was that it gave him an excuse to be alone. Whenever he needed relief from the suffocating weight of social responsibilities, he could always invoke the need for secrecy and disappear. At first, he had done so mainly to get away from his wife and concubines and visit his various mistresses. Later, it allowed him to avoid his mistresses as well. Eventually, he warmed to the task of freely prying into private lives. Now he truly had little time for wives, concubines, mistresses, or any other of the frivolous pursuits he had once enjoyed. It was the waiting that was now so precious. A rare time to be alone, with a small fire, the boiling water, the scent of tea, the feel of the heated cup in his hands. But today the water had barely begun to boil when there was a familiar voice at the door. "Lord, it is I." "Enter," Kawakami said. The door slid open. New scene. Heiko departed from the palace immediately after Genji did. She was accompanied only by her maid, Sachiko. If you recall, Heiko is Genji's geisha lover. And all of Genji's assistants suspect her because they haven't properly checked her out. And Genji was like, "I've checked her out head to foot." And they're like, "Lord, please." Genji, please. So anyway, yeah. She was accompanied only by her maid, Sachiko. Great lords could go nowhere without a troop of bodyguards. The most fearsome men in the land, they were also the most fearful. They dealt out death as freely as a happy child offered laughter. So by the Buddha's law of inescapable karma, death they also received. Unlike the powerful warlords, courtesans were feared by no one. Weakness, in fact, was what they so artfully embodied with the exquisite fragility of their beauty, their grace, their youth. Thus, they could go where they wished without fear. This too followed the Buddha's law. "Lady Heiko," Sachiko whispered, "we are being followed." "Ignore him," Heiko said. The lane through which they passed was lined with cherry trees. In the spring they would be full of the blossoms so celebrated in paintings and poems throughout the ages. Now these trees were black and barren. Yet, were they not as beautiful? She paused to admire a single bare branch that caught her eye. The light dusting of morning snow had nearly melted completely away, leaving icy water drops. Only a few flakes remained in the shadowed crook of the branch. In a moment, she would continue on her way. Sunlight would reach into this shadow. Well before she arrived at her destination, these snowflakes would be gone. The thought tightened her chest. Unwelcome tears welled in her eyes. Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu. Veneration to the compassionate Buddha who saves all sufferers. Heiko breathed from deep within her center and kept her tears from falling. It was truly a terrible thing to be in love. Ah, she loves him. We should not tarry, Sachiko said. You are expected in the hour of the snake. I should not make appointments so early, Heiko said. It is unsoothing to begin the day in a rush. True, true, Sachiko said. Yet what can a woman do? She is told, and she obeys. Sachiko was 19, the same age as Heiko, but acted as if much older. In an important sense, that was her job. By taking on all the practical considerations, she freed Heiko from the mundane burdens of daily life. The two women resumed walking. It was Kudo who followed them. He fancied himself an expert in surveillance. How he had acquired that conceit, Heiko couldn't guess. Like most samurai, Kudo was impatient. His entire training taught him to seek the single decisive moment that determined life or death. A lightning slash with his sword, blood and life running out onto the earth. It almost didn't matter who was vanquished and who was victorious. The decisive moment, that's what counted. Following two women who strolled so leisurely and who stopped so often to admire a tree or examine goods or simply to rest, this was extreme duress for him. So, of course, Heiko made sure she took even slower steps than usual, and made more than the normal number of stops, and engaged in the most unhurried of conversations. By the time they reached the Tsukiji district's main shopping area, Kudo was scurrying around like a trapped rat. Now, Heiko said. Several neighborhood women passed by, temporarily shielding her from Kudo. She walked beside them to a shop across the street, while Sachiko simply squatted down and devoted her full attention to a basket of dried squid. She watched from an alleyway as Kudo came running up. He looked frantically here and there, not even noticing Heiko's maid at his feet. When his back was turned, Heiko recrossed the street and stood beside him. She acted surprised when he nearly walked into her. Kudo-sama, what a coincidence. Are you shopping for silk scarves too? Throughout their brief conversation, Heiko had to struggle mightily not to break down in laughter. When Kudo was gone, angrily striding toward Hamacho, Heiko summoned a rickshaw. The hour of the dragon had already yielded to the hour of the snake. She no longer had time to proceed on foot. New scene. I'm not sure how to pronounce this guy's last name, or first name. I think it's Ichi. Yeah, okay. Kawakami Ichi. It's Ichi with an E in front of it. Eichi. Kawakami Ichi, Great Lord of Hino, presiding inspector of the Office of Shogunate Internal Regulations, awaited his visitor's entry into the cottage. He cloaked himself with the weighty dignity appropriate to his importance and his titles, which evaporated as soon as the door slid open. Though he thought he was prepared, in fact he was not. He was never prepared. He should know that by now. There was an elusive quality to her. Whenever she was out of sight, the details of her face and form blurred, as if neither mind nor eye had the strength to hold a vivid image of such awesome beauty. He saw her and gasped, a sigh in reverse. To regain some illusion of composure, he admonished her. "You are late, Aiko." "My apologies, Lord Kawakami." Ah, she is a spy. Heiko bowed, naturally exposing the fine curve of her neck. Again she heard Kawakami's sharp intake of breath. She kept all expression from her face. "I was being watched. I thought it prudent not to let him know I saw him." "Surely you didn't let him follow you here?" "No, Lord." She smiled, amused at what she recalled. "I allowed him to blunder into me. After that, he could no longer follow." "Well done," Kawakami said. "Was it Kudo again?" "Yes." Heiko removed the kettle from the fire. Kawakami had let the water boil too long. If it was poured over the tea now, all subtleties of flavour would be ruined. It would have to cool to the proper temperature. "He is their best man at this sort of thing," Kawakami said. "Perhaps you have caused questions to arise in Lord Genji's mind." "That is doubtful. I am quite certain Kudo is acting on his own initiative. Lord Genji is not of a suspicious nature." "All lords are of a suspicious nature," Kawakami said. "Suspicion and survival cannot be separated." "I wonder," Aiko said, tilting her head at an angle Kawakami found quite fetching. "If he can see the future, then he has no need of precautions. He knows what will happen and when. Suspicion becomes quite meaningless." Kawakami snorted. "Preposterous. His family has traded on that ridiculous pretense for generations. If any one of them could have seen the future, the Okamichi would be the foremost clan in the empire, not the Tokugawa, and Genji today would be shogun instead of the keeper of a backwater domain like Akaoka." "No doubt you are right, Lord." "You seem uncertain. Have you discovered any evidence of this reputed mystical gift?" "No, Lord, at least not directly." "Not directly?" Kawakami grimaced as if the words tasted sour. "Once, when Kudo and Saiki were discussing Lord Genji, I overheard mention of Suzume no Kumo." "Suzume no Kumo is the name of the main castle of Akaoka domain." "Yes, Lord, but it was not a castle of which they were speaking. It was a secret text." Kawakami was having difficulty paying attention to Heiko's report. The more Kawakami looked at her, the more he wished for sake to drink instead of tea. The time of day as well as the circumstances made that highly inadvisable. It was just as well. The social distance appropriate between master and servant had to be maintained. He felt himself growing irritated. Was it because he couldn't do what he wanted to do with Heiko? Certainly not. He was a samurai of ancient lineage. His base desires did not control him. What, then? The issue of knowing more than others knew. That was it. Kawakami was the one who saw, the one who knew, with vision based on reports from a network of 1,000 spies. Yet, in the popular mind, Genji was endowed with the ability to see even further than Kawakami. He was believed to possess the gift of prophecy. It is not uncommon for clans to have so-called secret teachings, Kawakami said. Usually they are books of strategy, often simply plagiarized from Sun Tzu's The Art of War. This one is said to contain the visions of every prescient lord of Akawaka since the days of Hironobu 600 years ago. Such rumors have long swirled around the Okamichi family. Supposedly, one in every generation is born a prophet. Yes, Lord, so it is said. Heiko bowed. With your permission. She poured the hot water into the teapot. Fragrant vapor rose into the air. And you believe it? Kawakami's anger caused him to take the tea too quickly into his mouth. He swallowed without letting the pain show on his face. The hot liquid seared his throat on the way down. Been there, done that. I merely believe that if such things are said, perhaps truth of some kind lies behind the rumors, not necessarily prophecy, Lord. Just because something is said doesn't make it so. If I believed everything I heard, I would have to execute half the population of Edo and imprison the rest. This was as close to wit as Kawakami could get. Heiko giggled politely, covering her mouth with a sleeve of her kimono. She made a playful mock bow of deep reverence. I'm kind of getting, from Kawakami, like Peter Dutton vibes. just a dickhead policeman. Not including myself, I hope. No, of course not yourself, Kawakami said, somewhat mollified. About Meyanaka no Heiko, only the highest praise is ever heard. Again, Heiko giggled. Unfortunately, just because something is said doesn't make it so. I will try to remember that. Kawakami smiled broadly, gratified to hear himself quoted so soon and so playfully by a woman of such grace and charm. Heiko never ceased to marvel at how easy it was to deflect men. All it took was a little show of silliness. They heard giggles, they saw smiles, they inhaled soft scents rising from the folds of silken cloth, and they never noticed the hard glint in the eyes behind the girlishly fluttering lids. This was true even of Kawakami, who of all people should know better. He was the one who had created Meyanaka no Heiko. Yet, here he was, as vulnerable as all the others. All the others, that is, except Genji. Lord Genji's grandfather, I think this is Kawakami? Yes. Lord Genji's grandfather, the late Lord Kiori, was also said to have cognition of future events. Kawakami accepted more tea from Heiko. This time he sipped more carefully. Yet he died suddenly, 3 weeks ago, the probable victim of poisoning. Shouldn't he have foreseen that and avoided the fatal dose? Perhaps not everything can be foreseen, Lord. A convenient excuse, Kawakami said, once again growing heated. It helps keep the myth alive. All of it is empty propaganda put out by the Okamichi clan. We Japanese are a hopelessly superstitious and gullible lot. The Okamichi cleverly exploit this. Because of these children's tales about prophecy, they are treated with an importance they do not deserve. Is it certain that poison was the cause of Lord Kiyore's death? If you are asking me whether I ordered it, the answer is no. Heiko dropped herself to the floor in a full bow. I would not dare be so presumptuous, Lord Kawakami. Her tone and manner were completely serious. Forgive me for having given you the wrong impression. The man was a buffoon, but a dangerous and clever one. In her eagerness to know what he might have in store for Genji, she had pushed too far. Unless she was more careful, he might sense that her interest was going beyond the bounds of duty. Oh, get up, Kawakami said expansively. I take no offence. You are my trusted retainer. Women, of course, could not have that status, but it was just a word. It cost him nothing to say it. You honour me beyond my worth. Nonsense. You must know what I am doing, so you can act in accordance. I was not fond of Lord Kiyori, it's true, but he did not lack for enemies. His friendliness towards outsiders, especially the Americans, angered many, and many more were angered by his interest in Christianity. He did not enjoy enthusiastic support even within his own clan. You yourself reported to me that Saiki and Tanaka, two of his most senior vassals, both strenuously objected to the presence of missionaries in the fief. Indeed, Tanaka was so upset he resigned his office and retired to the Mishindo monastery 6 months ago. Yes, Lord, that is so. He has taken the Buddhist precepts, and the believer name is Sohaku. Religious fanaticism can be deadlier than the political variety. Tanaka, or Sohaku if you prefer, is the likeliest assassin, in my opinion. How tragic, Heiko said, to be struck down in old age by one so close. Those who are close are the most dangerous, Kawakami said, watching Heiko for her reaction. Because we too often neglect to truly see them. You share Lord Genji's bed, for example, yet, at any moment, you might slit his throat. Is this not so? Heiko bowed, being careful that her smile was just right, acquiescent, without being eager. Yes, that is quite so. You would have no difficulty in overcoming your affection for him? Heiko laughed gaily. You toy with me, Lord Kawakami. I am in his bed because you put me there, not because of any supposed affection for him. Kawakami frowned. Be careful, Heiko. When you are with him, that truth must remain unknown even to you. You must love him completely, even hopelessly, or he will know you for what you are, and you will be useless to me. Heiko bowed down to the floor. Yes, Lord, I hear and obey. Good. Now, what about Lord Genji's uncle? Have you discovered his whereabouts? Not yet. Since Lord Shigeru left the castle, he has not been seen at any other lordly dwelling place within Akawaka domain. It is possible he is a fugitive from his own clan. We know where he is. He's in the monastery with Sohaku, covered in shit and babbling gibberish. And I think the last time we saw Shigeru, he had escaped his cell and was in the armory swinging swords around. Whatever the cause, that would be good news indeed. The uncle was much more dangerous than the nephew. Shigeru was a fanatical practitioner of all the ancient samurai arts. He could kill with and without weapons, and had. It was widely known that he had engaged in 59 duels and won them all, only one short of the record established by the legendary Miyamoto Musashi 200 years in the past. The 60th and 61st duels were set for the last day of the old year and the first day of the new, but it was unlikely now that they would ever take place. Shigeru had disappeared. Tell me what you have learned. Aiko began doing so without delay. If she thought too much about what she was saying, she would be unable to continue. Pieces of information had come to her from several different sources. She believed she had put the story together correctly, but she hoped with all her heart she was wrong. New scene. The small Buddhist temple on the grounds of Suzume no Kumo Castle was built in the long ago 13th year of the Emperor Go Hanazono. Unlike all the others, it was not dedicated to a particular sect. This was because Lord Wakamatsu had built it to atone for his destruction of 36 Jodo Nichiren, that's it, Jodo, Nichiren, Tendai, and Shingon monasteries, and the slaughter of 5,000 monks, together with their families and supporters. The heavily armed faithful had ignored the Lord's command to cease their religious quarrels and political machinations. Shigeru knew about the temple in considerable detail. Ever since his childhood, it had figured prominently in the most gruesome of his recurring dreams. Knowing that these dreams were fraught with omens, and understanding none of them, he had spent years studying the history of the temple in the hope of finding guidance from past events and personages. None had been forthcoming. Now, too late, he understood. That was the way omens always unlocked for him. Too late. He knelt in the dim light of a single lamp and lit the 105th stick of incense. With a reverent bow he placed it on the funerary altar of his father, Kiori, the late Lord of Akaoka. I am so sorry, Father. Please forgive me. For the 105th time, he said the same words. Then he lit the 106th stick. Fumes from the overabundance of burning incense filled the temple with a smoky miasma. He ignored the searing pain in his eyes and lungs. It was said the realms of hell were 16 in number. He knew better. 108 were the afflictions that man brought on himself through his endless greed, hatred, and ignorance. 108 were the repentances that brought lost souls to the light of Buddha. 108 was the number of lives Shigeru would live in 108 hells for his unthinkable crimes. when 108 sticks of incense had been lit, he would begin. "I am sorry, Father. Please forgive me." But he would not be forgiven. This he knew. Lord Kiori's spirit might forgive him for his own murder, but not for the others. No one would forgive him. Oh shit, killed Lord Kiori. "I am sorry, Father. Please forgive me." Shigeru was amazed. Somehow he had kept count. Despite the monstrous visions that kept him from sleep, that filled his head with such pressure he expected his skull to burst open at any moment, that mocked his very existence, he had kept count. This was the 108th stick of incense. "I am sorry, Father. Please forgive me." He pressed his forehead to the floor. The incessant thumping of wingless flying machines filled his ears. Behind his closed eyes, great lanterns burning without fire blinded him. His throat choked with the acrid taste of colourful, visible air. He was, he knew, completely mad. One person in every Okamichi generation was cursed with the gift of foreknowledge. In the previous generation, it had been his father. In the next, it was Genji. In his own, the misfortune had befallen Shigeru himself. The one who saw always suffered, because seeing did not always lead to understanding. For him, it never led to understanding at all, only suffering. The event occurred, unrecognized by him until it slipped from future to past. And suffering was followed by more suffering. If he were mocked only by prophetic dreams, life would be bearable. But then the waking visions began. A samurai truly disciplined in the martial ways could endure much, but the relentless flow of consciousness, unrelieved even by sleep, could be endured for only so long. The sky turned to fire and fell to the ground, burning, screaming children. Swarms of metallic insects crawled over Edo, stuffing their bellies with human flesh, spewing fumes noxious with the stench of their prey. Dead fish floated in their millions in the poisoned silver waters of the inland sea. What he saw in his mind overlay what he saw with his eyes. Always. There was no relief. Shigeru paused at the entrance of the temple. He bowed to the bodies of the two slain nuns, taking care not to slip in the twin pools of their coagulating blood as he stepped past. The full moon had been high above the castle when he crossed the courtyard earlier. Now, returning to his family's quarters, he saw the night still brightened by moonlight, but the orb itself was out of sight behind the walls of the castle. His wife's bed was empty, the coverlet thrown hastily aside. He checked the children's rooms. They too were gone. This he had not foreseen. A grim smile distorted his face. Where were they? There was only one possibility. He went to his personal armory and dressed himself. A metal helmet with red horsehair plume and wooden horns. A lacquered face mask to protect his cheeks and jaw. A nodowa to shield his throat, and two sode to do the same for his shoulders. Donaka, kusazuri, and haitate, made with steel plates solid enough to deflect musket balls, girded his torso, loins, and thighs. In addition to his swords, he stuffed 5 single-shot English flintlock pistols into his sash. Shigeru was commander of this night's watch. He had no difficulty getting his horse from the stable. No one questioned his appearance. When he ordered the gate opened, it was opened, and he rode swiftly from the castle. The compound of his father-in-law, Yoritada, lay in the mountains to the east, a short distance away. When Shigeru arrived there, he found Yoritada and a dozen of his retainers waiting for him outside the walls. They were dressed as he was, in full armour. 6 of the samurai held muskets at the ready. "Approach no closer," Yoritada said, "or you will be shot down." "I have come for my wife and children," Shigeru said. "Send them out, and I will leave in peace." "Umeko is your wife no longer," Yoritada said. "She has returned to my house and begged protection for herself and her children." Shigeru laughed as if the notion were utterly ridiculous. "Protection? From what, Apixie?" "Shigeru," Yoritada said, his voice gentle with sadness, "your mind and spirit are unwell. I have seen this for many weeks. Tonight, Umeko came to me in tears. She says you have taken to whispering constantly, day and night, of the bloodiest tortures of hell. The children tremble in your presence. I beg you, ask Lord Kiori for guidance. Your father is a wise man. He will help you." "He will help no one," Shigeru said, watching closely for an opening. "Lord Kiori was poisoned tonight with blowfish bile." "What?" Yoritada stumbled forward a step, stunned by Shigeru's revelation. The news had a similar effect on the other samurai. Now, this was the decisive moment. Shigeru spurred his horse into a charge, firing his pistols and discarding them as rapidly as he could. He was not a good shot and hit no one. His intention was only to further distract Yoritada's men. In this, he was successful. Only 2 of the musketeers came close to their target. Both balls struck his horse, causing the animal to fall. Shigeru leapt from the saddle, landed on his feet at a run, and decapitated his father-in-law with the first stroke of his katana. Slashing with the katana in his right hand and stabbing with the tanto in his left, Shigeru killed or mortally wounded everyone who opposed him before the dust had settled from his horse's fall. Inside the gate, his mother-in-law, Sadako, waited with 4 of her attendants. Each held a naginata, the long blade lance favoured as a weapon by samurai women. "Accursed demon!" Sadako spit out the words. "I warned Umeko against marrying you." "She should have listened," Shigeru said. He found Umeko and his children in the tea-house of the inner courtyard. When he leaned forward towards the door, a child-sized katana came stabbing through the rice paper that covered the wooden frame. The blade sliced open his left brow, barely missing his eye. "Enter and die," a brave little voice declared, without the slightest waver of fear. I'm just going to read ahead. I'm sure you can gather why. Yep, a bit of a graphic scene coming up. I'm still going to read it, but just be warned, it's graphic. Ish. and I," a brave little voice declared, without the slightest waver of fear. It was the youngest child, their 6-year-old son, Nobuyoshi. Shigeru could picture the scene inside. Nobuyoshi guarded the door, his katana extended in front of him, its point at eye level. Behind him, Umeko and their daughters, Emi and Sachi. Shigeru used the tip of his katana to open the door. Nobuyoshi saw him and gasped. The child quickly retreated. It would have been better strategy to hold his ground, since the small doorway limited Shigeru's freedom of movement when he entered. But he could not blame the child. He knew he must look horrible. He was drenched from head to foot with the blood of 18 people. 19 if he counted himself. Blood dripped from the wound in his neck where his mother-in-law had struck him. If she had cut an inch lower, she would have killed him. Shigeru's heart filled with pride as he looked at his son. In his short life, he had learned his lessons well. His sword was held at the proper angle with the proper poise. His posture was balanced, allowing for movement in any direction. And most important, he placed himself where his own life stood between the attacker and his mother and sisters. "Well done, Nobuyoshi." Shigeru had said the same words many times before, after hard practice sessions with sword, spear, and bow. Nobuyoshi said nothing. His attention was focused entirely on Shigeru. His son was looking for an opening, seeking that decisive moment. He deserved to die like the true samurai that he was. Shigeru allowed himself to stumble as he stepped into the small space. "Aye!" With a loud shout expressing full commitment, Nobuyoshi lunged at the gap in the armor at Shigeru's throat. His son did what every samurai must do. He vanished into the attack without a single thought of self. In that liberating instant, Shigeru cut so swiftly, Nobuyoshi's body continued forward in mid-stride, while his head fell to the floor behind him. Emi and Sachi cried out and clutched each other, tears streaming down their childish cheeks. "Why, father? Why?" Emi said. Umeko held a dagger in her left hand. In her right was a derringer. She raised this and fired. The ball rang against the steel of his helmet and bounced off. Umeko dropped the pistol and replaced it with the dagger. "I save you from further sins," she said. With 2 swift movements, she slit her daughters' throats. Their blood gushed onto the pale silk of their bedroom kimonos. Then Umeko looked straight into Shigeru's eyes. "May the compassionate Buddha lead you safely to the Pure Land," she said, and plunged the dagger into her own throat. Shigeru sat on the floor of the tea house in the bloody ruins of his life, a sword in each hand. He watched the small doorway. Soon he would hear the sound of horses bearing troops from the castle. He began to laugh. He was still doomed, but he had freed his beloved wife and children. They would be untouched by the coming horrors promised by his prophetic dreams and visions. End of chapter 3. Damn. So that's a hell of a way to end a chapter. So Lord Shigeru killed his own family and was driven mad by visions. Well, driven mad by visions and then killed his own family. And that's why I guess he's imprisoned. They probably might tell us how he was imprisoned, because it's kind of difficult to believe that he was taken prisoner. So he must have allowed himself to be taken prisoner. Why did they keep him alive? I read this book so long ago I can't remember. But yes, that's yes, the book does get a bit violent. So yeah, it's a very adult book. And there are lots of adult themes, especially some coming up. I will skip over any, like, if there are descriptions of, like, sexual violence, I will skip over that. I did so in the Count of Monte Cristo, and I will continue to do so because, no, I'm not reading that. So yeah, I hope everyone's enjoying the story. It's, I don't know, I think the author writes well, and yeah, I think the characters are acting exactly as they would for that kind of time, and they have all the opinions that they would of that time. So yeah, I genuinely don't think that reflects any of the characters reflect the author's actual opinions, but you never know. Right. So, what do? I know it's another short stream, but I've streamed 3 times this week. 3 times. What a machine. We have Fascinating Fangirl is on. We have Chronico ASMR is on. Also Bambi ASMR. Although I don't really know Bambi. Oh my god, Fascinating Fangirl has a bear costume and is playing Minecraft. We gotta go raid Fangirl. Oh my gosh, she looks so cozy. And she's got cozy tag on her string too. Yeah, we're gonna go raid Fangirl. First of all, I would like to shout out. Who am I gonna shout out? We're gonna shout out Pixie.
Glory to you and your house.
Glory to you, Pixie. Pixie reads on Sundays. I actually posted on Blue Sky. I said, do any other streamers want to shout out people who are lurking in your chat? Because I get that all the time. Work busy, enjoying the vibes? Oh, thank you, Pixie. Thank you for being here. Oh, I need to fix that. Get rid of those lines. I'm not a fan of lines. I might put in some kind of fancy ASCII things instead of just blank lines. Okay, we're going to go raid Fangirl because she's not in the ASMR category, but she is very calming, relaxing, and she playing Minecraft. And her voice is lovely. So, please join me for the raid and give her a go. Now I just have to copy, paste the username so I don't mess it up. There we go. Yay! Thank you for joining the raid. Yeah. So go say hi to Fangirl. Alyssa, thank you for being here. And thank you, Pixie, for being here. And thank you, everyone, for lurking, for being here. I will see you, if not tomorrow, then probably next week. or maybe the weekend. I always say the weekend, but it never happens. Except for that one time. Yeah. Alrighty, so we're going to go raid. Copy the raid command. The first one is for everyone. The second one is for subscribers. Yeah. And I will see you all later. I hope you have an excellent rest of your week and an excellent weekend. And I'll definitely be back to read more of this book. I'm very much enjoying it, as you can probably tell. And yeah, I will see you later. Bye, everyone. Bye.